I would like to start by giving thanks to the Yuhaviatam Serrano First Nation, whose unceded, stolen, traditional indigenous homeland I call home. What I'm about to share with you relates to shared ongoing struggles. To those who long for liberation. There is a meme with a shot from the Matrix films where Morpheus, portrayed by Lawrence Fishburne, informs Neo of the existence of artificial intelligence programs known as agents that can move in and out of any software hardwired to the system. A second variation presents a shot from the moment Morpheus gives Neo the option of taking a blue pill to continue to live in the world of illusion, or a red pill to enter a painful reality where he is conscious of the existence of the Matrix. Captioned with, "What if I told you?" it is usually followed by a ridiculous petty revelation. Tired of the misuse of the Matrix references by Trump supporters and alt-right conspiracy groups, Lily Wachowski slammed both Ivanka Trump and Elon Musk via Twitter. The film is pointing at something we could say ironically is a problem that stems from that which supremacists are supporting. This is because, without a proactive will toward consciousness, the programming of the Matrix is invisibilized, even to the agents who extend its goals, formats, and logic. I support reclaiming these references for decoloniality from supremacist ideology pushed by the agents who are everyone and they're no one. Anyone who is not unplugged or conscious of the history of power and its context is potentially an agent. In August 2020, Wachowski said the Matrix is an allegory for trans identity, and because of this reason, it is also about our current context in coloniality and the matrix of power, which continue to make transphobia, racism, sexism, ableism, and all other isms and phobias possible. Peruvian sociologist, political theorist Aníbal Quijano Obregón warned us of the existence of a matrix of power. His perspective comes from a lineage of decolonial resistance work in support of indigenous farm workers, student, and working class movements, while based on the ideas of Peruvian journalist, activist José Carlos Mariátegui Lachira, who Quijano credits as one of the first critics to become unplugged from the matrix of colonial power in the Americas, which leaked beyond colonial institutions infecting world systems and even our very own existence. The red pill, or the consciousness Mariátegui and Quijano share with the world, stems from an indigenized decolonial perspective on the current world system. In his 1991 article, Coloniality and Modernity Rationality, Quijano states, "With the conquest of the societies and the cultures which inhabit what today is called Latin America, began the constitution of a new world order, culminating 500 years later into a global power covering the entire planet. The coloniality of power constitutes a matrix of methods and patterns of power embedded in our world system and made possible by racial and revamped gender discriminations marked during the colonization of the Americas." Quijano explains colonialism established direct political, social, and cultural European domination over the conquered of all continents. With the world's resources brutally concentrated and exploited, and people forced into slave labor for the benefit of a European minority of the human species, particularly its most dominant classes, the marginality experienced by those most impacted by colonization in their lands and in the diasporas into the so-called First World doesn't grow from within our identities, cultures, or races and ethnicities. We're actually dealing with the long-term effects of colonialism as we resist their continuation as coloniality of power, the matrix. Colonial discriminations based on race incorporated previous gender-based discriminations. A cishet white woman became superior to a cishet man of any other race, and any cishet man became superior to any cishet woman of color. A format of hierarchical and binary thinking and doing was imposed and generated even more hierarchies and subcategorizations of sexuality, physical and mental abilities, social class, spirituality, and much more. These constructions were widely spread by pseudoscience, presenting lies as objective categories with a supposed ahistorical meaning and not as the result of the history of power. Quijano explains, coloniality of power has multiple dimensions and they are inseparable. Coloniality was the result of colonialism's systematic repression of the specific beliefs, ideas, images, symbols, or knowledges that were worthless to global colonial domination, while simultaneously the colonizers appropriated that which supported domination, knowledge in mining, agriculture, engineering, products, and physical labor through the dehumanization of people to flesh, bodies for all forms of enslavement. Downtown LA offers overpriced, decontextualized, squeezed juice kombucha from a hipster where there used to be a family-owned culturally specific fruteria. Gentrification is justified by the Matrix. The value of beings, their culture and community are worthless, and only the parts that are beneficial to domination of individualist capitalist goals are appropriated. The myth of modernity centers on the Western Eurocentric take on what defines progress in an imposed, rigged competition. Supposedly, all other countries are simply developing or failing. Argentinian philosopher Enrique Dussel explains that the violence generated by the myth of modernity is what is really irrational. In the name of progress, dehumanization, robbery, and murder are justified. Imagine I took over the world and established that if you live differently, you're just not developing at such an advanced rate as I am. And I use this as evidence that I'm organically superior to you, and also that for progress, it's okay to kill you and take your things. Why would this ever be okay? And more hidden is what is and what counts as knowledge and how it should be made, collected, and shared. And this has been defined by institutions, but also by individual agents. During colonial times, the repression was imposed more than anything else on the ways of knowing, of producing knowledge, of creating perspectives, images and image systems, symbols, modes of signification, over the resources, patterns, and instruments of formalized and objectivized expression, intellectual or visual. Dominant content and patterns were imposed, which stopped cultural production of the dominated and were used as a method to control when oppression and murder could no longer be so bold. The few colonized who were educated, religiously and secularly, were given perks of power in exchange for them serving as agents of supremacy. Hierarchical and binary ways of thinking and doing were widespread through tools such as mass media. While entertained, we're programmed to formats and ways of doing coloniality. The promise of access to power seduces into becoming a willful agent of the Matrix, aspiring to advance and progress within the confines of the system, no matter the cost. Yet, imposing the logic of coloniality onto others and enforcing its hierarchical stratification is like pissing into the wind. In Pedagogy of the Oppressed, Paulo Freire explains that those who support the colonization of the imaginary and follow it blindly are nothing more than oppressed oppressors. Stuart Hall explains how the media reflects a matrix reality that is fed while it feeds the dominant culture order through conceptual maps of meaning, or the ways we organize, classify, and represent to construct meanings within culture. In her video series, Culture Transformation, cultural theorist Bell Hooks explains how this logic is embedded in the way people, and particularly women of color, are negatively portrayed in popular media, how it is normalized, and the effects that this has on the way our society engages in and reacts to violent, racial, and gender injustice. The Matrix is enacted through the logic which is embedded in our personal expressions, our ways of thinking and seeing the world and doing in life. As part of the 5% combined total of brown, black, and indigenous women professors who have painfully achieved tenure in academia across the US, I want to share some observations. As a transfronteriza, I grew up on both sides of the US and Mexico border. Perpetually crossing borders demystified them. They're nothing but tools of dehumanization and monuments to binary and hierarchical thinking, upholding the logic of coloniality. Borders are interdimensional, also existing at the level of education. As an artist, teacher, and mentor, I expand the reach of my work as a proponent, a transhistorical and multidimensional translator, connector and projector of decolonial and liberation ideas, philosophies, theories, using culture and pop culture, among other things. And I do this in a personal, divergent, and transdisciplinary way, going beyond the limitations of all disciplines I have been trained in, and continue to learn new ones, inventing new ways, taking and remixing elements for what is required to produce knowledge in a transfronterizo way, from the in-between and from a transgressional stance across all borders. Things seem to be shifting in terms of what is epistemologically acceptable, that is, the methods, validity, and scope of what knowledge is and can be. Still, one is often forced to assimilate to predetermined formats and content if we want to be good enough. If one does not produce knowledge in formats that our colleagues deem as valuable, our work, even if it's genius, does not count. We cannot be promoted to the next levels of professorship when this happens. Agents to supremacy bully others into abiding by the logic of coloniality, so resistance must be ingenious. And I do this in honor of a legacy of resistance to coloniality, just as my relations have done for over 600 generations at the border. I am nomadic by inheritance, a resident of what feminist Chicana fronteriza Gloria Anzaldúa called Nepantla, a time, a space, a state of mind, a will and power that emanates from the in-between. My being leads me to produce knowledge across diverse platforms through Rascuachismo, new media art explorations, ethnographic non-research, and community-centered storytelling through art production inside and outside of academia. The logic of coloniality exists in everyday life actions, words, forms of communication. People can unknowingly be agents to supremacy in the service of their own domination and the one way of seeing and doing over all other possible forms. This limiting perspective is an obsession on sameness and repetitive formats that extend to defining the very right to exist. This is why in schools many students appear to be disinterested or don't engage in the materials, because the very format of how and what is shared is reminiscent of the attempts to erase us. They can be a form of violence. Only validating and valuing what we know about and are familiar with results in the interruption of difference and innovation and the subjugation of the work. At its worst, it has materialized in the assassination of people who tried to unplug us from the matrix of supremacy. If someone has ever called you racist or phobic and you believe they deserve to be punished for it, you may be experiencing cognitive dissonance. Coined by social psychologist Leon Fitzinger, when we hold contradictory beliefs, ideas, or values. Some of the most powerful agents are the fake allies who continue to refuse to listen and impose their forms of support, which actually can do more damage. Even those who follow marginalized disciplines of resistance can impose the logic of coloniality when they refuse to recognize unique methods of knowledge production that quote others who they have not read and which are based on experiences and perspectives that are even more invisibilized. Even some critical work cannot escape this matrix because of the trauma that it provokes us to function and the repressed memories of having to somehow kill a part of ourselves to be validated. In the decolonial imaginary, Chicana theorist Emma Perez points out how few have proved that assimilation is also a tactic, an interstitial move for survival. Racism and discrimination compel those new cultural survivors to be as creative as possible as they move through power. This survival may be blinding, and after all, the complex inner workings of trauma and its effects on memory and the ego make internalization possible. Speaking of the fragility of memory, Morpheus never says the words, "What if I told you?" in the Matrix film series. And for a collective of people to remember something that never happened is referred to as the Mandela effect. According to psychologist Frederick Bartlett, they are derived from schema-driven errors, from formats in which we logically organize and guide our memory. Schemas facilitate understanding of material, but because they're filtered through what we think is universally logical, they can easily be distorted. So what if I told you the ridiculous petty revelation is that you may well be the everyone which is no one? We ignore many things that did happen. Important aspects of human history and knowledge have and continue to be hidden from us. Ignorance and confusion uphold the continuously updated 500-year-old matrix of power, and it emboldens the agents, those who are enacting an artificial intelligence, a made-up incomplete collection of knowledge and history of which conspiracy theories are an extreme, sometimes unconsciously, at others unconsciously, yet maintaining the matrix. To those who feel uncomfortable, sacrifice your imaginary comfort to shift human consciousness. Learn the hidden context of our human experience for the hope and possibility of less hate, less pain. Protect our planet and human lives. To those agents who unapologetically uphold supremacy, as Neo says, I know that you're afraid. You're afraid of us. You're afraid of change. I didn't come here to tell you how this is going to end. I came here to tell you how this is going to begin. And I will leave you with a few of my words. Perhaps you're angry about the exposure and want to gaslight the world and tell everyone that people like me are the bullies. And I'm sure you have plenty of questions and are longing for me to do all the work for you. But no. Instead, imagine all of our questions, echoing thousands of intergenerational voices beyond the dimensions of life and death. Oh, you cannot imagine our questions? Then make it a point to learn our questions. Do the work. The choice can be yours. To those who long for liberation, please excuse me. I am aware that my language and expression has become limited by my academic formation. The struggle is ongoing. Finally, I want to share that I'm wearing a Chinanteca huipil from Oaxaca, representing the passage of the Chinanteca woman from life to death. I want to thank the families in Oaxaca who are passing on knowledge in traditional indigenous formats and ways and sharing them with the world. And finally, to all the people in the struggle, we define the future.